Welcome to episode 10 of This Week in the Metaverse. We're back to break down 3 news items that are affecting the development of the Metaverse and on which we think we can provide unique expertise and analysis. It's Matthew, and I'm joined with Yon again. It's just the two of us once again. We're both around. So the 3 items we're going to break down this week. This one came out yesterday, and it's gotten a lot of attention, and I'm not actually quite sure what to make of it. It's Minecraft's developer Mojang says they're banning NFTs inside of the platform, and it's anything to do with Minecraft. There's no NFTs, which we'll dive into exactly what that is. A lot of my take was like that kind of makes sense, but people were kind of taken aback by it. So we'll dive in. The government of Dubai, which is one of the Emirates in the UAE, they announced a 5-year metaverse strategy to create 40,000 jobs, and they plan to add $4 billion to their economy. And that's an article from Fortune. There was a tweet from their government officials. So there was a lot of going on from them and talking about what they're doing. So we'll dive in there as well. There's a lot of things going on in the Middle East that are crypto related, and this definitely ties into that more so. And then lastly, we'll stick with kind of the crypto Web3 angle, and we'll talk about Yuga Labs. They demonstrated a tech test of their Otherside Metaverse platform. They called it a demo. They called it a beta. I mean, this was a tech test, but we'll dive in. Before we get there, though, we should have a short announcement to share with you. All right, so we're going to get right into Minecraft. So let's go farming for some wood. So this probably isn't super surprising. At least to me it wasn't, again, but for some it seemed like it was. That, they've never officially supported any NFTs in Minecraft to begin with. But there were some third-party developers that did some plugins or did some things where you bought an NFT, you got access to something in the game or whatever. And Mojang is banning all of that. And they're basically saying, and this is straight from their post on this, in our Minecraft usage guidelines, we outline how a server owner can charge for access and that all players should have access to the same functionality. We have these rules to ensure that Minecraft remains a community where everyone has access to the same content. NFTs, however, can create models of scarcity and exclusion that conflict with our guidelines in the spirit of Minecraft. So they're coming at this from the angle of we want to keep Minecraft inclusive, so we're banning NFTs, which by default only really have value, well, at least largely because of scarcity. Yon, what's your take? I think I have a more cynical view on all of this.
Well, I think probably I'll take the pragmatic point of view and say the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, right? On the one hand, I think Minecraft just doesn't want to deal with it. Mojang just doesn't want to deal with it. It's not the time for them. I agree. It took them a bit of time. Probably they saw too many use cases of how NFTs are integrated and taking advantage at the moment by developers and the community. And they're taking the high ground by saying we're into inclusivity and not into scarcity. And they're also simplifying their lives by not going too deep in trying to figure out what does it mean. And they're kind of going for the simple argument of the shallow core use case of today of NFTs, where it's an NFT collection, it's expensive, it's scarce, and very few people own a lot of them, and it's very volatile. So they're kind of tapping into what has happened with NFTs until today without trying to envision what could NFTs mean for the Minecraft community. I think that's kind of on the one hand. And then I think on the other hand, obviously there's been things that are happening on the platform on Minecraft that they just didn't like. If it's because of, I saw some data point, I don't know if it's a fact or a rumor, but I think some tweets show that some of these servers who used NFT integrations have made more money than a majority of servers on Minecraft for the past, decade or something. So I think there's just a lot of antagonism still in the gaming community. And Minecraft in and of itself, at the end of the day, is a very big multiplayer game platform and a game experience. And they wanted to simplify their life in my mind, and they kind of cut it out. I don't think this is the end of it. I very much suspect at some point, maybe in a year or 2 years or 3 years, we're going to see a revisiting of that choice and strategy. But I think for now, they basically wanted to shut it down and not deal with it. And that was the most likely, most effective way for them to just shut it down.
It's easy to fathom how, as a developer, you could make more money from NFTs than you could from just selling in-game items, because Mojang doesn't get a cut, right? I mean, except for whatever exchange you're listing the NFTs on, you keep 100% of the revenue. So, I mean, we don't see Minecraft's numbers, we see Roblox's numbers, and they're probably similar in scale, right? I mean, Minecraft's bigger in revenue, we think, but regardless, only about 25% of Roblox's total gross bookings, the amount of money people spend only goes to developers. And that's not for want of not wanting to give out more. It's because they got to pay Apple and Google, and then they got to pay, R&D, and they got to pay for CapEx and everything. So what it nets out is there's only so much available to pay out to developers from what gets, spent by users. And Minecraft's probably not different. My cynical view on all of this is actually just, kind of tied to that, in that, yes, I think that they have this altruistic view that they want to ban this because there's things going on they don't like. We have to remember that these platforms do have a young audience. Maybe Minecraft's not as young as Roblox, but it still probably skews relatively young, and there's reasons that you want to think about protecting them. But, at the end of the day, this is money being spent that they don't get a cut of. And there is a cynical business case to say, well, people were making money off of our platform around our rules and around us being able to take a cut of that. We're going to cut that out. And then to your point about revisiting it, I think, and this is kind of where Roblox was at as well, is, they're probably going to look for a way to, if it makes sense at some point, embed blockchain technology, potentially NFTs, into the platform in a more centralized manner, in a way that's controlled by them, as opposed to letting people run amok and do whatever they want. And then in that sense, they can still have control and they can still get a cut of it. So, I think there is this, yes, we want to protect users, we have these things in mind, but there is a business case to be made that, this is about keeping money in the platform and making sure that they get their cut.
And I think one thing that I would say, unrelated, but at a more strategic level in my mind, about Minecraft is it seems like this is just one more example of Minecraft Mojang not really pushing the boundaries of what Minecraft could be. And again, I think they took the simple A out of the discussion and just excluded altogether blockchain and NFTs. And I think that to me represent a bigger missed opportunity in my mind, from Mojang perspective, and at a higher level with Microsoft, of you're not really seeing how Minecraft as a product, as a platform, is pushing the boundaries for becoming more of a metaverse platform in the way that Roblox is, and in the way that Fortnite creative is being pushed forward by Epic Games. And so I don't think you're seeing that with Minecraft. And to me, this is just one more example. And I think at some point there's going to be a come to Jesus moment where Minecraft, I think, may potentially start losing some of the commercialization skill that they have. Maybe some developers start building servers, moving into other platforms. And so I think this is if I'm in Mojang shoes, I would be a bit concerned that they're not really pushing the envelope of Minecraft. Now, that's not to say that it's a bad idea to just keep Minecraft as a core of what it is. It's not a bad idea, but I do think there's a lot of innovation happening, and there's a lot of different things happening at the same time with Metaverse and blockchain and so on and so forth. And so I'm wondering if this is just yet one more signal that Mojang is just not focusing on pushing the boundaries of what Minecraft could be in the next decade. I might be wrong, but that's just my hypothesis.
I mean, Mojang rolls up into, Microsoft Gaming. It's no longer Xbox Studios. It's broadly Microsoft Gaming. And we know Phil Spencer, to say it nicely, has not been a fan of NFTs and blockchain. He's openly talked about that. He thinks that it's not mature and it's not there yet. And so, it makes sense that companies under his umbrella and under his purview would have the same view. And when you look at just where they're going, they're so successful in what they're doing with Game Pass and really with what they have now. These future technologies, Microsoft is so big, they spend so much money in R&D, they'll be there when they need to be there. And because this is such a nascent business, there's just no need for it right now. I think that's also an important consideration.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a report on Phil Spencer's desk that showed the amount of money generated from NFTs on Minecraft, the impact on the players and the community. I wouldn't be surprised if a report of such nature reached his desk and within 10, 15 minutes, he basically said, shut it down. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happened.
Yeah, no, for sure. And this is why everyone has to tread carefully, because so much of this right now is still, yes, there's great people out there building great things in Web3 and crypto gaming. There's also still a lot of things that are using the specter of games to sell a Ponzi scheme. And, we need to be careful still. And eventually that will change, and eventually the new stuff will come that's really worth playing and worth investing in, but it's just still so early. So we're going to move on, and I guess today is a big crypto NFT day. We're going to talk about Dubai and their plans to foster a metaverse and crypto ecosystem. And, we can talk about this. I think most of this focuses on crypto, and metaverse is just kind of like a side part of it. But they plan to create 40,000 jobs and add $4 billion to their economy through this plan that really has no details yet. They just said they're putting the plan together and details will come. Basically they want to train a lot of people to be blockchain developers and then be a hub for blockchain development in the Middle East. Sounds cool. There's actually a lot of stuff like this going on in the Middle East. A lot of these countries are looking at kind of Web3, Metaverse, these future technologies as, where they can kind of move on from where they've built their economies, which is mostly in energy and natural resources. And so, maybe we can just start with what's your thoughts on kind of a country putting together a plan like this? And then we can maybe move on to discuss more specifically about Dubai and, and kind of how Metaverse fits into all of this.
Yeah, look, I think, first of all, Dubai has been one of those countries that have set multiple times kind of these nationwide, governmental-led, big initiative in certain sectors. And, I'm not surprised that they are one of the first, if not the first, to actually announce a nationwide program at that scale and this level of investment, which is not crazy, right? 4 billion. It's not, adding 4 billion to their economy is kind of a, it's a few barrels of oil every day, right? And so, but I think it's really important that we're seeing a nation state consciously setting up a program and an investment led by the Crown Prince of Dubai, so very, very high up. And so it's obviously important for them to not only launch something like that, but also be perceived as trailblazers and innovators. I do think that this is yet one more example where Web3, crypto, metaverse are all bundled together in a way that really doesn't really make sense. And I'm excited about an episode next week that we're launching, that is going to go live, that really talks about that, about the distinction between the two things, between Web3 and metaverse, that is really bundled all the time together. And you're right. I think it's mostly talks here about crypto, Web3, blockchain, and so on and so forth. But I think it's a great signal. I'm suspecting that there's going to be more countries in the next couple of years that are going to initiate nationwide programs that invest in the metaverse. And lastly, I would say, I'm not surprised also that one of the first countries is a government like Dubai, because, as you said, they are constantly trying to reimagine what their economy is going to be based on. And, there aren't many trends at the moment as visible, viral, and popular as Web3 and Metaverse. But, they're putting their money where their mouth is, which is great. I'm curious to see in 2 years what is the outcome of that and what actual opportunities it provided to creators, entrepreneurs, businesses, and how many have really migrated or started businesses in Dubai. At the end of the day, that's what's going to matter. Are they going to really create enough companies with thousands of new jobs and cement Dubai's position as really a frontier for the space? And I remember about a decade ago how they launched Dubai also as a fintech hub. And so I feel like, this is definitely something that they've been doing. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. Let's see the outcome. But I'm expecting to see more government doing initiatives like that.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of countries in the Middle East do things like this. Like Saudi Arabia has this City of the Future project where they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars, and it hasn't really gone anywhere. And it's just, there was an article on Bloomberg this week about how, how behind it is and how many times they've changed their plans. But so these things don't always work out, but it is good, to have governments involved, because we talked about this with Tim O'Reilly, that for something like this, we don't want to let companies run amok like we did in the mobile internet era, where really we didn't have rules in place to kind of, put this on a path to, a good outcome, whatever you think a good outcome is. I don't think the outcome we have with the current mobile internet is a good outcome, having a few platforms control basically everything. And so, governments getting involved. And I was in Hong Kong, I spoke with some governments over there, and I know there's people looking at this. How can we facilitate the growth of this and put the rules and regulations in place now to foster the growth in a positive way? And to have those conversations, to have governments interested, is important. So from that perspective, this is a good thing. Whether or not it actually leads to 40,000 jobs, whether or not it leads to $4 billion of GDP, who knows? Those are consultant numbers. So who knows what comes of it? But the fact that they're involved and the fact that they want to shape this and put their mark on it, just by itself I think is important. And since we're talking about the difference between blockchain, metaverse, Web3, and how these terms come together, I know you're going to save it for the end, but I might as well just plug it now. Matthew Ball's new book, The Metaverse and How It Will Revolutionize Everything, is out this week at bookstores everywhere. It's been reviewed by the CEOs of Epic Games, of Sony. It's fantastic. I finished it. I was lucky to get an early copy. Go check it out. It's rising up the Amazon bestseller charts. He goes into really good detail. I think he explains it really succinctly, how these things are different and how they come together. And I won't give away the golden goose because you should go read the book yourself. And then moving on, one last NFT, blockchain-y, crypto, Web3 story that we're going to talk about this week is, this is from Yuga Labs. Someone we've talked about a couple times now on this podcast. That's the parent company of lots of PFP NFT brands like Bored Apes, and they have a couple others in there. If you recall, they raised $450 million at a $4 billion valuation back in March. That was before, yes, crypto prices were down, but that was really before everything the bottom fell out of a lot of stuff. They also sold 55,000 land plots on their Otherside Metaverse for $317 million, which most buyers are now underwater on by a lot. So on Otherside, they showed off what they called kind of like a beta, but let's just say what it was. It was a tech demo. Like, it was just a tech test. And really it was just like a guided tour of some things that they can do, inside a virtual space. I will say it was cool that they put like 4,500 people in one single virtual world, because if you go to Roblox or something else, the number of concurrent users is capped, not because of any reason except the technology is not there yet to do more than that. So rendering that many people simultaneously, concurrently in a virtual space is hard. So for them to do that, that's cool technology. But, we'll see what it actually looks like when there's elements in the world and it's a big world and everything. This was a guided demo. So we don't know how real that is. But for just broadly, there's a lot riding on Yuga and Otherside here. I think not just for Yuga itself, but I think for the broader, Web3 metaverse community, because they're kind of like the standard bearer, for this latest wave of companies to take PFP NFTs and turn them into something more than just JPEGs. And if they can't do it with roughly $800 million of cash to spend on R&D and build this, no one's going to do it. And so, I come at it from that angle that, like, there's a lot riding on this. So maybe Yon, your take, and then we can go from there.
Well, first I will say that it's an admirably ambitious project that they've undertaken, regardless of how much money they've raised. And to be honest, I think it's less about the amount of money. It just takes time to build a platform. They do not aspire to build a RPG MMO, they're not aspired to build a massive multiplayer online game that is an RPG. That's not their aspiration, which in and of itself would have been a very big endeavor. They're aiming to build, quote unquote, an NFT based open metaverse. And that means building a platform where other developers can come in and build stuff in that platform. And that just takes time. If you look at what Fortnite is aspiring to do with creative, turning that into a platform, and you're talking about a company with way more capital availability, just got $2 billion, one from Lego and one from Sony, $2 billion, not 450 or several hundred million. And so it just takes time beyond the capital. So I would just say, I think Otherside's biggest challenge, very much like different companies in the past that had a lot of money and wanted to build something really quickly, like Magic Leap, that constantly tried to ship that sort of first incredible consumer device that they shipped, but it wasn't what people expected. I think Yuga Labs' biggest challenge is the expectations that are set for the other side in terms of what it is, what it could be, when will it be. And I think they are already against the wall with regards to expectation. And if you add on that the fact that there's a lot of money involved, not just investor money, but retail investors who own NFTs and other deeds and all sorts of NFTs from Yuga, it just creates even more tensed environment and higher expectations. So that's one thing I would say. The second thing I would say, I don't know how much, I might be wrong, but I don't know how much this was a tech demo of Otherside versus a tech demo of Improbable. We haven't seen yet massive platforms and games that have been commercialized at large scale built on Improbable technology. Improbable is still in the process of commercializing their own engine, their own tech, right? And so to me, I wouldn't rule out that this was actually primarily a tech demo by Improbable, because from a game perspective, from a platform perspective, from what it means for users and developers, aside of seeing 4,500 people running at the same time, which is absolutely cool, and like, you know, not much of a world has taken place, but it was a tech demo, and the tech is built by Improbable, not by Otherside. So that's the second thing I wanted to make, which I think is really important that no one seemed to address.
That's an important point. And they said it, right? I mean, they're using Improbable tech for what they showed. So absolutely, that is an important point to make. And just back to your point about, you know, taking the time to do this. An average AAA game takes 3 to 5 years to make, right? And that's if you've done it before, you know. And we've seen so many companies, and this was even before COVID got in the way and caused development delays. We've seen so many companies, like CD Projekt was really bad at this, be loud about how great a game is before it exists, and then build up this hype, and then it doesn't meet expectations. This was Cyberpunk in this case, and for lots of reasons that was horrible. But you just can't. You have to just let developers have the time they need to build the right thing, and not just to build the platform, then to attract people in there to build on top of it. I mean, this is a probably 5 to 10 year building effort to get to anywhere close where they probably want to be. And I just thought that they would take the money they raised and disappear for 3 years and just go build. You know, the fact that we're seeing something so fast to me is actually worrisome, because that means that they're getting pressured to show something when they really haven't had. I mean, they raised this money back in March. They sold the other deeds, you know, back in what, May? I mean, you know, like, it's only been a couple months. Like, yes, this is someone else's tech, but like, they couldn't have built anything material in 2 months. I mean, it takes a lot longer than that.
And also, but more importantly, I think at the end of the day, they're building a marketplace, right? What is a platform? It's a two-side marketplace, right? You have the users and you have the developers. And at the end of the day, I think one of their biggest challenges, which I don't know how they're going to meet, they will most likely face the opposite. They will most likely have way many more users with NFTs and not enough developers who come and build stuff for these users. And the key question to me is, what are they doing, how much they're investing, and how rapidly they can introduce developer tools, infrastructure, ecosystem that developers of actual interactive experiences are going to want to come in and build stuff, because they will need a lot of great experiences, which is, by the way, same challenges folks like Core and Sandbox and Decentraland, all of these newcomer platforms, they all face the same challenge. And I think what people underestimate, I think, is how long it takes to build that loyalty of developers. And we spoke about it quite a lot, and I want to reiterate, one of the key reasons why Roblox is so successful is because over a very long period of time, they have built potentially one of the most dedicated, talented, and passionate developer communities in the world of technology. And that is very hard to do. It takes a long time, and no money that you're going to shove. You can't bribe passion. You just can't. And that takes time.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point. Remember that Roblox is 17 years old. Most of those developers were the early users of Roblox. So they got into it as players and then started creating and developing. And all these other platforms are so nascent. We haven't been through those cycles yet. We talked about that with Craig Donato, how it took them 15 years to get to the point where the content is at a scale where it can support this massive user growth. And, you know, we saw Snoop Dogg spending tens of millions of dollars on land in the Sandbox They have 350,000 monthly active users, and that was when they did a big event. That was the number they threw out for June during the event, which like it's probably less than that in non-event times, right? And compare that to Roblox, which is probably 1,000 times that, 300 million or so, right? And 350 million. And so it's just, I just worry that these companies are being forced to do stuff way too fast, and they're going to waste all this money that they've raised, both from VCs and then also from retail through NFT sales and everything. And even just random companies. I mean, I joke about it, but Accenture bought land in the Sandbox. Like, they're probably going to have to write off that asset at some point on their balance sheet. Like, these are things that are going to happen, and I don't know what becomes of it.
But look, I mean, I'm sure I speak on behalf of both of us, saying, obviously, we're rooting for these players, we're rooting for these platforms. I personally, as an entrepreneur, as a builder in this space, I'm rooting for all of those players. I just think there are incredible challenges, and ultimately, the biggest hurdle for a lot of these platforms, especially Yuga Labs, because of their scale and their visibility as a brand, is the management of expectations. And there is enough example from history to understand that at the moment, that pressure, that timeline, all these tech demos we're seeing are really not doing them any favor. And hopefully they can ultimately launch something that is going to be attractive for developers, because that is the key. For them to really be a platform, incredibly talented creators, builders, developers are going to have to come into the platform and prioritize Otherside on other platforms.
No, I definitely echo that point. We want these brands to succeed. It's just rushing it won't make it successful. These things take time, and we need to be rational about how long it will take to get there. And so with that, I think that's a good place to wrap up. Once again, go get Matthew Ball's book. It's fantastic. Have a good one.